Good evening, everybody. This is Kelsey Wicks signing in again for another session of Black Community Unity on the IntellectualRadio.com station here in Broadview, Illinois, along with my co-host, Reverend Elliot Parker. How are you this evening, sir?
I am doing fine.
Good.
Yes.
Glad you could make it.
Yes.
And as always, Black Community Unity, our interests extend far beyond the Black community. We are thankful that you can, for everybody that's tuning in this evening, January 22nd, 2018. The telephone number here is 708-223-8953. If you want to book a session pretty much like what we're doing right now, you can call and ask for Miss Wanda B., who's in the studio, and also Earl Winfrey, the producer. I guess Wanda B is the co-producer. So if you want to book a show, just call into that number and they will talk to you. We are, as always, we're going to give a shout out to Myron Otley and the Metro Singers out of Hyattsville, Maryland, if they're still located there, for allowing us to use the perfect rendition of the old Negro classic, Steal Away. And we also want to, as always, thank and commend Earl Winfrey and Wanda B. for making this forum and allowing people to come in and share information with you, information other than the show that we have here. We have about 70 shows right now on IntellectualRadio.com. Shows that you can choose from. If you go there under archives, you would click on archives and they would give you a listing of the shows. So tonight what we're going to do is we have our next work in progress, which is a program called the Planning Committee, an endeavor called the Planning Committee, an endeavor that incorporates en masse participation for national agendas that encourage and implement educational standards for our children in conjunction with those agendas already in place. And there are many, many agendas out there. We understand that. But what this vision sees, what we envision with the Planning Committee is the Super Bowl, basically, the World Series of all endeavors. We want to put together a planning committee of national interests, huge interests, that will incorporate clothing industries, business for our children, for example. That's something we've been talking about now for quite a while here on IntellectualRadio.com, as well as other endeavors. So in conjunction with the existing programs that are going on right now that are endeavoring to enhance the quality of life for America's people in America all over, all cultures, all races, and so forth, we want to bring this new endeavor in. So it relies on en masse participation for national agendas that encourage and implement educational standards for our children in conjunction with those already in place, and harnessing the necessary resources to make this happen. Oversight and monitoring of our children and national participation can provide the social and economic anchor to help steady the rise of some of our continual social problems that we have been experiencing in America, particularly since the country has become more urban in these last 100 years or so. This work, of course, is an introduction and can be greatly enhanced by professionals. Our work is merely a rudimentary foundation, something to get it going. Okay. And so Reverend Parker now is going to read to you the planning committee. We've put together a generic outline. So Reverend Parker is going to open up and read,
Okay.
share with you.
Okay, I'm going to share with you about 4 points. And the first one is professional role models out of this program. Of that, subpoint A, doctors and lawyers and teachers and policemen and architects, business persons, entrepreneurs and bankers, auto mechanics, builders, etc. Professionals represent the standards of achievement for youth who will one day be embarking upon a career choice. Subpoint B of 1 encourages the notion of a career choice at an early age in addition to the older youth in high school. Subpoint of B is an attempt to eliminate indecision and the futuristic mystery surrounding the importance of making a career choice. And we know choice is very important. Point A of 1 provides a clear conscience, expectation, and path to a career choice. The second main point, film video. A subpoint, National Orientation Week, or NOW, is an endeavor that was proposed in Chicago in late summer of 2016 that purports to impress upon America's youth our strong expectation and belief in their ability to succeed and to lead future America. It's very important. B subpoint of 2, creating a film having 5 to 8 segments from professionals in the above noted fields, explain the steps and requirements needed to enter into those respective fields. The films or videos should be shown in school auditoriums and classrooms throughout the country annually. Now, the third point, the blueprint. Take a look at this. A point of blueprint, the planning committee will be the unique national blueprint that combines all sectors of American society in a comprehensive push toward providing an ongoing, and check this out, and sustainable economic, social, and educational assistance for our school children. Number 1 of A point, this goal will necessarily include the enrolling of 75% of Americans into memberships at their local parent-teacher association, better known as the PTA, or local school district councils. Implementing the K-1 through K-12 clothing inheritance, whereby a business is created for our school children as an inheritance, and the vast majority of Americans purchase American-made clothing for their children, with sales revenue used to fund summer and after-school jobs, school rehab construction, providing the digital technology needed in order that our children can compete with their global counterparts, etc. The last point of B, the levels of educational accomplishments at certain age groups, especially the older age groups, should be interchangeable. If we find, for example, a sophomore in high school who has an interest in becoming a doctor and has taken courses in biology and science and later decides on being a lawyer will have absorbed technical requirements of study via biology and is within the arena of the required comprehension needed for the alternative choice of becoming a lawyer.
I'm going to read. I'm going to read now. Let me take this loose.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, C, subpoint C of number 3 under blueprint. The goal of the planning committee is to play a support role in the ongoing work of assuring that American youth receive quality educations and are prevented from indulging in negative behaviors that will lead to incarceration and criminal backgrounds that will help forfeit their chances at satisfying and abundant lifestyles. And I also just want to mention right quick that this generic blueprint, this generic outline that we're putting together right now, that we're reading to you, can be seen on our accompanying website, we-grow.net, we-grow.net. So whatever you're missing, you can always find it there, as well as other episodes and other segments of Black Community Unity. Subpoint 1 of C, the national agendas for business creation given to our youth en masse enrollment of the American population into local school district type organizations or PTAs and National Orientation Week, combined with the already ongoing educational, social, church community, and economic efforts in order to strengthen and heighten the possibility of success for our youth. The planning committee agenda strongly urges persons living in America, citizens and non-citizens alike, into a national agenda that demands that our children comply with certain standards of educational responsibility. Now we're going to revert back to something that we've already, because a lot of this stuff ties in that we previously talked about, that we previously spoken about on other segments of Black Community Unity, ties into what we're talking about now. And so under the subtitle C, we had a subtitle 1 of C that I just got through mentioning, and A, this is a subtitle of subtitle 1. The age of responsibility is an approach whereby children should be taught that they are expected to adopt a more mature attitude and behavior, even if they do not in many cases, should be somewhere around the age groups of 10 to 12 years old. Our work the last year in 2016 also promoted the concept of the age of responsibility for our children. And so if we're going to demand a little bit more accountability on the age of our children, then we necessarily need to come in with some type of a formula or a endeavor, such as the age of responsibility, somewhere around the ages of 10 or 12 for our children, and impress upon them our expectations of them and what we want them to do. D, a national education expectation for our youth will be created, documented, and placed in tall order of priorities that affect the future of our children and America. This endeavor represents an ongoing challenge throughout the year to adults as well as school children, not just grading or report card time. We will create the perception, if not the reality, that the bar has been raised in our dealing with our children. We have the power to disrupt early youth crime with a national agenda of participation, but it's going to take, we put up a 75% figure. You know, if we can get 60%, if we can get 85%, what we're saying to you is there has to be a mass enrollment. That's the point. That is the main difference with the planning committee agenda. Mass enrollment and resources that derive from those huge numbers. That's the crux of the gist of what we're talking about with this agenda. Subtitle E, this agenda can help secure a new dimension into parent, guardian, community, and teacher relations. We've talked about that. As I said, some of the stuff we are rehashing now because it's been talked about in previous shows, but it's all tying back in again now. So that's why you're hearing it again. Monitoring and data. 4, monitoring and database information. Non-invasive, simple database information such as name, contact information, children enrolled in school, are they at grade level expectations, your membership in a local school council or PTA, are you members of the K1, K12 clothing enterprise? Do you talk about the age of responsibility with your children? Yes or no? Are you a supporter of Buy American made products? Yes or no? Is your church or school a member of National Orientation Week? Yes or no? So basically, just some very non-invasive, simple questions that we want to document and put into a database. Subtitle 1 of A, number 4. So number 4 was monitoring and the database information. The subtitle, the subtitle of that was 4A, non-invasive information placed into a database. Now we're at subtitle 1 of A. Funding for database information will be needed, but can be supplied via various means if adopted and supported by the public, especially in regards to television and advertisers who will purchase airtime if we supply the viewership, which we can do. We're talking about the lives of our children and the future of America, which is our children. So if we can get the numbers and come up with programs on network television and different like that, we would be able to realize substantial amount of money because viewership means a lot. Advertisers, how many people are watching that can possibly buy their products? We can do that. B, the dialogue alone will direct the social relations of America into a new arena. Just talking about stuff like that can put us into a new dimension. Okay. And I'm going to let Mr. Elliot Parker read the rest of. I'll tell you what, Reverend Parker. Let me read that. Please. Let me read this, and I'm going to let you close because I wrote this, and you may not be able to put forth the point like I can. Okay. A. This simple question can be directed. This simple question, what I'm getting ready to put to you, can be directed at youth attending school who is at the age of understanding. The question being, where you at? Simple question, where you at? It is a query into whether the child or youth is up to date with the expected level of educational attainment. Where you at? It is a reminder that concerns about their education rest outside the walls of school and are now also the business of the community, the business of the church, and in certain matters of society and social relationships. It is a question that can be asked of a freshman in high school by a pastor. Where you at? Mm-hmm. Or a gym teacher. Where you at, Antoine? Or a father who has a pretty high school daughter with many admirers. And the father may say, young man, you want to date my daughter and take her out on a prom? Fine. I like you, Antoine. Think you're a nice man and all, but Antoine, where you at? Where are you at in your educational attainment? Because if you're not up to speed with the expectation that we have of you, then you don't need to be concerned about taking my daughter out to a prom. You need to be concerned about getting your grades together. Okay? Simple question. I didn't ask Antoine how much money he had. I didn't ask Antoine what religion his family was or what was their social or economic status. I asked Antoine about himself. Where are you at in relation to your educational attainment? subtitle 1 to 4A. Card carrying progress cards at certain age groups would be cheap and worth their weight in gold. Your card tells us whether you are serious in school and about your life, period. It tells us about the student. In a sense, it's his or her badge of honor. It will allow them credibility and some degree of respect in their goings abouts. In other words, the card carrying, typically, I don't know how it is now, but we got graded during different periods. The older people, they know what I'm talking about. We got report cards, and report cards showed how you were doing in English and math and social studies and science and so forth. The card carrying is basically just a small card that indicates whether the student, 3 times a year from September to December, December to March, and from March to June, if they're reading up to level or not. It's a yes or no thing. Is the student up to level in their grade? You coming over to see my daughter? Hey, Antoine, let me see how you doing in school, buddy. Let me see your progress card. Fine, and so forth. So I wanted to read that because I wanted to make sure that they got the emphasis of that. Okay.
Yes.
You can finish up with the left. What's that, point 5?
The 5th point.
Yes.
Cross-cultural, economic, social, and political appeal, which means the premise foundation upon which the planning committee rests, rises or falls, is predicated upon national en masse participation and resources derived from the envisioned huge numbers. This indisputably will include persons with different political views, financial standing, and cultural, social upbringings.
If you're having a problem reading your handwriting, you can read it off that too.
That's going to be upbringing. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And social upbringing, again, a national agenda that purports to redefine the double expectations that we have for our children, that calls to moral arms the many of us who desire to drastically curb the recycling of youth. Listen to that statement. That calls for the moral arms that many of us who desire to drastically curb the recycling of youth and adult violence and create a sustainable means whereby we can assure that the economic needs and provisions for quality education are met, has few opponents, much less enemies.
I see that you you drew an emphasis on the part about
Yes.
having
Curbing that, yeah.
Curb. What is it?
That was simply to curb the recycling of youth and adult violence and create a sustainable means whereby we can assure that those economic needs and provisions are met, so to speak.
We've never had a national agenda like that in the United States that sets aside cultural differences, social upbringings, economic standing, those type of things, political differing political viewpoints. Right. We've never had a national agenda, like I say, a Super Bowl where you've got all of these people, and that is a possibility too. We love to talk about curbing the violence for our youth, but when you have a national agenda that incorporates vast numbers of American people, then you have the possibility to curb crime as it relates to adults too. Reverend Park,
Yeah, that's right.
That's really something. That's something that we need to start really seriously considering. And then when you have the numbers like that are, I won't say unified, but you have them together, willing to dialogue and to look at different dimensions in human relations. A lot of that has a lot of potential.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
Most certainly do. And I do remember us talking about changing the character of the Black community.
Yes, sir.
I definitely need us to go back, if possible, to revisit this.
Okay.
Because you brought out some points, if we may.
Yes. What now? Well, what do you what are some of the viewpoints that you have as far as changing the character?
My concern tonight, as we look at the community, and not only the Black community, but all of the communities involved. Number one, and the biggest one, is acknowledging the Creator.
Okay, that's I'm with you on that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I believe that's a big issue because many people do not include God in their destiny. He's not included. The plans that we make, He's not included in their destiny. Meaning where they end up, God is not there. They're not acknowledging Him as a creator. And that's a major problem.
Yeah, we talk about God on this program. We're not afraid to talk about. Very good point, and I agree with you 100%. Now, how do you think a national agenda would impact being able to share the Lord, to share God with the public, the people out there that's really not searching or indifferent about it? How do you think a national agenda would impact that?
I find it very difficult, and I'm speaking from a personal standpoint. I have found it very difficult for me to be educated as I am, and not to be educated without acknowledging God. I'm a big fan of school church or church school. I'm a product of Sunday school, and I think it's very important. Education to me with God has more lasting and wonderful effects than to have an education without Him. Even if you have the best things in life without Him, eventually that's not going to matter. To gain the whole world and lose your own soul is not. It's really important to me. So yeah, I have to have God along the way as I'm getting educated. So it is very important to me.
Okay, so bringing the Creator into the lifestyles of people is one way that you see as far as changing the character of the Black community. Any other dimensions, new areas that you think, or old areas that we can impact to help realize changing and enhancing the quality of life?
Well, I think respect for life is important.
Okay.
Going along through life and not respecting life is a major concern that I have. There are people in our world who have no respect for life at all. They don't even acknowledge the fact that Yahweh or Jehovah created this world. So if they don't have any respect for that, Kelsey or Brother Wicks, then I believe there will be a lot of disrespect. And that's what I'm finding a lot of in our humankind, specifically here in Chicago, because I can only speak what's in Chicago because I live in the Chicagoland area. So we really need to go back to what do we do when it comes to the respect for life? Do you find yourself an issue with that? Is there a lack of a respect for life?
Of course, I find an issue with it. I remember the year before last year, I forget. I was walking around with I spoke at forums. I had a little placard with me. It's in when you came over tonight, I could have showed you my little placard. What hast thou done? What hast thou done? For the blood of thy brother's voice crieth unto me from the ground. Man, I was walking around with that placard downtown Chicago. I spoke at forums. And the question that question comes from God as He is talking to Cain, who slew Abel, his brother, in Genesis, the beginning of the Bible. What hast thou done? For the blood of thy brother's voice cried. God didn't say for the blood of thy brother's voice crieth unto me from the ground. He said for the voice of thy brother's blood. And the point that I made with that, getting back to trying to answer the question that you asked, Reverend Parker, is that people don't know that that same question is being, God is asking that same question now to those out there handling these guns and going around killing people and stuff like that. The same question that he asked Cain, what have you done to your brother, has been fast forwarded to the same day and the same hour and minute. What have you done? You're going to have to be accountable for that. And see, that's the whole thing. A lot of young people don't know that. They may read that. They may read about. They may read about that in the Bible, about that question, about that scenario, and may not take that to heart. That's also talking about them. So we need to raise the consciousness level and bring respect of life back to it. And again, I think that's something that we can do on a national level if we can enroll people in mass. And you don't have to call it the planning committee. You can call it whatever you want to call it. The point is that we need in mass participation, because with in mass participation, that's the road that opens up. That road leads to resources. It leads to intellectual input. It leads to health. It leads a path to God. When you got the numbers like that, mass participation, that's what we need to be looking at right now, I think, Reverend Parker. Because if we can do that, enroll these huge numbers of people, then we can take our time and begin to think things out all the way through. Like I said, think things through and come up with and go into dimensions that we have not explored yet. But we can't do that because we haven't reached that plateau yet. Mass enrollments of people cutting across political, economic, and social barriers, economic barriers, and cultural barriers, and so forth. What else do you think now? So that's God. So that's respect of life. What else do you think changing the character?
Scholarship, study, and education. And you know what the key word is?
What?
Number 4. Between those 3 words, study.
Study.
And I remember watching an old clipping of Dr. King, who gave a message on the blueprint of life. He was speaking to a graduating class, I believe, of junior high students. Mm-hmm. Here's a man with a PhD. He's speaking to a group of 8th graders about the blueprint of life. You know what he really was talking about was scholarship, study. How many of us read, not necessarily read secular books, but read the Bible? I made a conscientious point to make sure that I study the Bible before I leave the house every morning. If it's not more than 5 verses. And I can tell you one thing, over the last 3 weeks, which I won't say over the air, it has made a difference. And you know what I'm talking about. Those 8 that I told you, it has made a difference in my life. So spending time in study and scholarship is important. How do you find that?
I think studying, there's nothing, we can see the benefits of studying God's word, what it did for Dr. King. I found wisdom in the Bible. Direction that has helped me out, helped me to think deeper, helped me to think better, but also I also suggest a study of, when you remember not too long ago we were talking about advancing one's vocabulary, because when you study 2 words a day you run into other words that you don't know. And it just avalanches on. It just keeps going and going, and rippling effect and so forth. Study is very important because knowledge is power, and the more knowledge that you have, I forget where I saw somewhere. I don't know if it's in a library downtown somewhere. Books gives a person wings. You can fly. You can be free, or you can be confined. You can be incarcerated. When I was incarcerated, I could see inmates in there who were rich, how study had enriched their lives. It was almost like they had wings, and gave them some type of temporary freedom from the limitations, like we were talking about with Dr. King's letter in a Birmingham jail, letter from a Birmingham jail. Yeah, so I agree with study. I think that health is important. I was reading not too long ago, I was looking at something on TV where they were talking about how to ward off the effects of Alzheimer's and dementia, certain foods that you can eat, blueberries and so forth. You can look that up online and do your own research, do your due diligence, how to ward off the effects of Alzheimer's and dementia when a person's brain may not have the same mass, may not be the same size of a person who's experienced uh, Alzheimer's or dementia. But do your own research on that. There's information all over the website on how to enhance the quality of life. They've got. I didn't share that with you when I was at home, but they've got all type of utensils and cooking equipment that you can cook with now, that can take the grease, take the greasy food, help remove the grease from food, so that you can eat more nutritiously and so forth. So health is very important. Walking is very important. Doing cardio exercises, that's another thing that we have to. And the Black community, we have risen in leaps and bounds, uh, as opposed to the years, 40, 50, 60 years ago, in terms of the diet that we eat now. We're much more health conscious, much more food conscious, more concerned about what we put in our stomachs and what we put in our mouths now. So food is another area that can help in life and change the character of the communities that we live in. Black communities, but also as we always note on Black community unity beyond the boundaries of the Black community. So that's another area that we can pursue. Anything else? So
Well,
we've got the knowledge of God and the pursuit of God and His Word. We've got better health. We've got study. And what else did we say? I don't
there's one
know.
more.
What?
Respect for the planet.
Oh, respect for life. We got that one too. And then you
I
said
heard
respect
that.
for the planet.
Respect for the
Okay.
planet.
Mhm.
Making sure we maintain a clean community. And that's important. Taking care of the earth is important. Taking care of our community. And one of the things that bothers me when I go into, I'm not going to say all of the Black communities, when I go into most of the Black communities, I have a problem because I'm finding out that there's paper, there are wine bottles, things of that nature. As simple as that. That lets me know that our communities are not being taken care of. And that's a problem that I have.
And I have that same concern. We do need to clean. I have to, there's some things I can do around my house to make it better too. But they see that, what's the old saying? Cleanliness is next to godliness. Yes, we need to. We need to. But again, if you have a national agenda and everybody's doing that right now, you're talking to one segment of the city, or you're talking to one segment of the nation, and this, that, and that. When you have a national agenda, you can galvanize your issues, whatever it is you want to talk about. You can galvanize it. Everybody may not. The planning committee may not want to address certain issues because we know the divisiveness that's involved with it, such as pro-life or pro-choice. We don't really need to talk about. That's not the type of issues that we want to discuss with the planning committee, because we know where it's going to lead to. You know, but when you're talking about common interests, health, your issues of respect for the planet, your issue about respect for life, your issue about scholarship and study, those are general issues that Many people that we better education, sound and quality education for our children. Can we set up? Can we put together some type of a business plan to provide a heirloom and a business inheritance for our children? Those are all common interests that we can share. That's the type. Those are the type of issues that we need to try to embark upon, that we all can agree upon. We all need to have better health. We all need to have cleaner neighborhoods. Those are the type of issues that we need to talk about. And yes, I agree with you. I agree with every point that you've made so far, that can enhance the quality of life in Black communities and in communities in general, in our neighborhoods. Anything else that you want to share with us?
Those are the points I wanted to share tonight.
Very good points. I'm glad you brought those out.
Yes.
And all of those points need to be involved in the planning committee. Perhaps sometimes in the near future, I might not be on the show. Might be involved. I'm constantly always looking for employment, and if I'm blessed enough to find employment, then Reverend Parker is going to be your host. He might have his own guests on, and I might I'll still be with the program, still be offering my assistance, making phone calls, that type of thing. And so, Reverend Parker, do you have any new vision that you want to add to what we're doing? Anything that you want to share? Any type of, as a college, an adjunct college professor, you might want to put together some type of a educational forum. You're a pastor. Pastors, bring some pastors in and share. It's going to be up to you, because you're going to be. I'll be hopefully working at some time in the future. I'm out here looking every day. So that's something that you all might be looking forward to.
Sure.
Is Reverend Parker becoming your? I was the only host for a while, and Reverend Parker was the co-host. So he may be the new host for a while, and bring in some co-hosts or guests from time to time.
Sure.
Okay. So you want to take us out with prayer?
Unless you want
to offer anything else.
I don't want to offer anything else. So hopefully at some point I did invite some listeners. So maybe they'll get a chance to call in and make some points and things like that. Down the road. Hey.
All right.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, again, we thank you for this talk show tonight and all the talk shows that have come before us and those who are coming after us. We thank you to get the word out. Again, thank you for these producers here who help us to set the stage to get the message out to those who are voiceless in our wonderful Chicagoland community. Bless us as we sleep and slumber on tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
In Jesus' name, amen.
See